Welcome back for the third panel of the day. So the panel on how analytics shaping operators' content strategy. So we'll have Mehdi Belaj from Vodafone Deutschland. We have Amruta Shankar from Cinemedia and Fai TCP from Cosmo TV OTE Group. So this panel will be moderated by Julian Clover. So Julian, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Priscilla. Good afternoon again, everyone. Let me go through the panelists, and I'm just going to give them a minute or so to describe who they are and what they do. I'll do it in the order of the screen in front of me. You're never sure with these platforms as if everybody is in exactly the same place as everybody else. But Faye, let me start with you, and 60 seconds or thereabouts anyway, to explain a little bit more about Cosmo and OTE and what you do within the company.
Yes. First of all, good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. It's already extremely interesting. The day has been extremely interesting. So my name is Fai TCP. I'm responsible for the market insights and content development part for Cosmo TV, which is the leading pay TV operator in Greece, and a part of OTE and obviously Deutsche Telekom. This is the mother company. I've been with the company for almost 5 years now, and I'm coming from the FTA business. So Pay TV has been a challenge for me at the beginning, but proved to be extremely interesting. And so my work, it's, as I said, is mostly involving analytics, audience measurement data, and at the end of the day, the evaluation of data so as to, create our content development strategy and programming strategy in total.
Okay. And those awards behind you, they're not all yours?
Well, those are Telly awards. We're very proud of our on-air department here. So the on-air department has been awarded all those trophies behind me. And that is why I've chosen this background for the day, not just my boring office downstairs. I mean, I found it quite interesting and quite relevant.
Well, I was going to say that the session is about using the analytics to shape, the strategy of content providers, and the evidence would seem to be that the on-air promotions, for one, we know they're working at least among the awards committees.
It's going well. It's going well, Julian. Yes,
precisely. Mehdi, let me come to you. Tell me a little bit about your work at Vodafone Deutschland.
Sure. So I'm Mehdi. I'm part of the TV engineering department in Vodafone Germany since 4 years now. Our mission, as I see it, is so getting the right content to the right customers in less than 60 seconds, because we know that from customer perspectives, customers usually need in 60 to 90 seconds to find the right content on the platform. Otherwise, they would either do something different or they would watch random content. So this is our mission, and we're dealing with metadata, with content recommendations, analytics to improve the customer experience and the content discovery in general.
Okay, well, that's our two content providers. We also have Amruta, who is with Cinemedia. Amruta, tell us a little bit about yourself and also the work of Cinemedia in this space.
Thank you, Julian. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amruta Shankar. I am the Director of Data and Analytics at Cinemedia, and I am responsible for our strategy in how data gets used more effectively to deliver the right actionable insights to our customers. So I'm really looking forward to this panel to hear what our customers are looking for as well. I think Mehdi and Faye do a good job representing that perspective. Cinemedia itself, we are the largest global provider of video solutions for pay TV operators. with our software deployed in 220 million set-top boxes globally. And a lot of what we are doing with Insights is using our decades of experience in this domain to ensure that we are driving the right video-centric insights to platforms, be it set-top box or OTT.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's drill down a little bit deeper then and find out about how our operators, first of all, are using data and analytics. Faye, specifically on content acquisition, how do you use data to make sure that your customers are getting the right shows put in front of them?
So, nowadays, obviously, there is so much data going on. The data sources are, numerous. I would say that as far as content is concerned, we're mainly focused on customer usage analytics and audience measurement analytics. Due to the fact that here in Cosmote TV, we do have our own branded channels as well, we are not only focused on using data for, decided which content is relevant or not. So not only for content acquisition. We do use data for programming, for strategic planning in general, for content development, because we are also producing our own original content. There's, different types of data and different, I would say, different targeted strategies in a way.
You make a differentiation between, say, as you mentioned, you have your own channels. Do you look at them in a different way to what you might do a third-party channel which is on the platform?
Yes. I mean, we look at everything. We obviously look on, our focus, obviously, firstly, is our own channels and our own channels' performance. But competition, especially here in Greece, due to the fact that the FTA is so strong, it is still very strong. So there are like a couple of FTA channels, gathering almost 60 or 70% of total viewership. So we are kind of, obliged in a way to look on everything. So our competition is not only, the thematic channels, for example, but the FTA channels as well. So when we decide on our strategy, even if it's for content acquisition or for content development, we are always looking on everything. Competition to us is not only, pay TV competition. It is a matter of whatever our viewer or subscriber chooses to watch. So, because
the free-to-air channel might just as easily have the rights to the big football match or the blockbuster movie as a premium channel does. So you have to watch that and the effect it then has on the rest of that free-to-air channel's schedule.
Yeah. I mean, we're quite lucky because we obviously have the major sports rights to ourselves. So we are, we do have this luxury. But on the other hand, there's the part of entertainment, and entertainment is not only sports. It's movies, it's reality TV, it's whatever entertainment can be. So we look on everything. Competition to us is, total TV in Greece. It's, the full mapping.
Yeah, and Mehdi, free-to-air channels in Germany also, it's another market when they're still very popular, be it RTL, Sat.1, ProSieben, and many others available. And one would assume that, like Faye, Vodafone Deutschland will be looking at how those channels are performing and also the shows within them.
Absolutely. I mean, so we consider ourselves as a content aggregator. So of course, the more content available, the better it will be for us and for our customers, because the more variety it will bring and so on. So basically, we don't produce content. We rely completely on content providers.
And that includes video on demand, does it as well? You're not aggregating any movie channels for on demand. You're also buying those in, are you, from third parties?
Absolutely, yeah. So we have the transactional VODs, we have the on-demand content, which we call catch-up also, and we have the so-called premium content, which is not available, let's say, as part of the standard subscription. But and we also integrate apps like Netflix, Disney, DAZN, Circus. So our position is that we want our customers to use one unique platform. And even though they have, there are other subscriptions available and so on, we could integrate everything into one place and have customers choose which content on which environment, just have everything accessible from one place. And that's what brings the challenge.
Yeah, I guess that kind of helps from the data perspective, because if a customer is basically only going to you for their TV, you can exactly see as to how much time they are spending on your service, and within that, the individual services, as opposed to very dangerous using yourself as an example, but I have a Skybox downstairs. I think it's probably got some of Amruta's technology inside of it from Cinemedia, of course. But then I've also got an Apple TV box, and nobody can, that information of what else I'm watching. An operator is not going to know if I'm watching TV or playing in the garden with my nephew and niece.
Well, that's the ideal way. Of course. So ideally, what we would like to achieve is we have a complete view, let's say, of so you just have one environment and you have a view of the viewing time and how it's spread. So either in different content types or different platforms, and study the whole behavior. The integration part might reveal a bit more tricky, especially from some providers more than others, and so on. But so we try, let's say, our approach was to have the GigaTV product, for example, available on set-top boxes, but we also integrated it to the Apple TV environment. We have an OTT Android-based box as well. So those are the different, let's say, markets that we are trying to tackle, and we're trying to be available no matter, let's say for all the customers' preferences.
And how do you then use the data then in terms of your content strategy? What are you looking out for in particular? Obviously, it's easy to work out, quite often which the top channels are and the top shows, but how do you then sort of drill down that little bit more to get further information to help you make business decisions going forward?
So generally speaking, I would say from the understanding perspective, there is still room for improvement. But what we are doing today, so of course, we're trying to identify the most popular content on the platform. We're trying to maybe identify the main categories of customers we have based on their viewing behaviors, the usage of the content in general. And we rely a lot on related content. Let's say, if customers who viewed or who are interested in this or that specific genre or type of content, and the collaborative recommendation, that's something that's not available today, but which is also we keep in mind. So we try to aggregate people of our group of customers based on their common interests.
And oh dear, Faye, the lights have gone out.
The power is off in the building. So sorry, I'm just shutting down the video.
Okay, that's okay. We can still hear you, which is important. So in terms of production, using data for that, because we heard earlier that you're also creating your own original content. What sort of things are you looking for? Is it I guess finding the right show for a Thursday night, or what else might the data be used for?
So was it for me, Julian?
Yes, it was. Yeah, how you're using the data specifically to the commissioning of new shows.
Yeah. So as I said, we are, as far as the commissioning and the content development part of the business, we are basically looking into audience measurement data. So we kind of try to get to know our subscribers / viewer better. So we are not only focusing on, pure KPIs. Sometimes I call them the boring KPIs. So we kind of try to, focus on, obviously, for example, the program that a viewer watches, what our subscribers watch in general, how much time do they spend on that, how often they tend to watch this program. So we are also exploring loyalty in a way.
And do you do that within say specific, I don't know, genres or maybe age ranges, keeping an eye on those?
Yeah, I mean,
34s?
Yeah, it can be genre or typology. It can be, other, let's say, micro data in a way. There's so much in audience measurement, especially. There's so many variables that you can play with. So as to create, your subscribers' profile. So through that, you kind of know your subscriber better, and then you can, gather all these different aspects, this viewing profile aspect, so as to decide on what program you should, invest, whether it's like acquisition or development. And we kind of started doing that, especially over the last 2 years, since we've started, producing our own original fiction content. So we kind of have, different types of genre. We started with crime. Now we are launching our third original, which is like a psychological thriller. Then we'll go through comedy and other genres. But you should, kind of rank the genre based on your subscribers' profile. So we work this way, and there's obviously other interesting data as well. It can be, let's say, qualitative data, survey data. So you gather all this data. There's so much data, and sometimes it's getting tricky to decide on what data is relevant. But then there's like the human factor, myself and other colleagues, that we kind of play with this data and decide how to explore our future strategies. And up to this point, it's working pretty well. So fingers crossed we'll continue this way in the future.
I'll come to Amrita in a moment, but Mehdi, I just wanted to ask you in terms of the visual representation, the TV guide, or the EPG, as some people call it, increasingly important, because we're not just dealing with channel numbers anymore. It's the promotion of video on demand assets, of course, as well. Do you, keep an eye on where things are positioned on there, or how, if you're promoting a particular movie or event, as to how well that is doing, and then looking to promote similar events in the future?
Well, we're trying to, at least, but this is also, I think this is a general problem that the whole TV industry is encountering, in my opinion. And this is the fact that the way we are currently presenting our VOD catalog, like our content in general, just throwing 50,000 assets in front of the customer doesn't make any sense anymore. So we are trying to review our way of representing the content. And this is where some, let's say, some engines like the recommendation engines, maybe they could contribute. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there are two different parts, let's say. So there is, of course, the popular content, something like which is very popular, which is a common interest for the biggest range of customers. This is something which is very important to display because of course it increases the customer engagement and the time that customers in general spend on the platform. Besides that, there's something very important, and I have the feeling it's still not catching the attention that it should have, which is so the recommendation engine mainly is supposed to identify the small niches for the content which is not necessarily very popular. So if you have content that maybe, and that's the advantage. I mean, if you would like, I mean, as a content aggregator, if you would like to increase your revenue, you would better try to search for content which is not very expensive, I mean, relatively cheap, and try to sell that content to as much or as many customers as you can. So you would really, and in order to do this, you would need a very good understanding of your customers. So you need to understand the customers in order to be able to recommend tailored content that is potentially going to increase your revenue.
Thanks so much. Amrita, let me come to you. I like to sort of look at the effective use of analytics. And is it relevant simply to collect as much data as possible, or is it better to focus in on particular areas?
So just to almost carry on from Mehdi's point, I think that data and the right insights is almost that bridge of understanding between platform providers and their subscribers. Data really helps them understand every one of those millions of subscribers at the end of their devices. And in terms of data collection itself, there was a trend that, you know, big data became popular and fashionable, and there was a rush to collect as much data as possible, and then to try and sift through that minefield of data to try and surface insights. It was quite like looking for a needle in a haystack. But what we are finding is it's not the volume of data that's relevant, but it is the specific type of data or that we need to be really looking at to derive the right insights. So, you know, we are moving away from collecting data because we can, to ensuring that we are collecting data because it answers a specific tangible outcome for our customers. And this has a variety of benefits. One is it ensures that your data footprint stays small and manageable. You are able to use data more effectively. And ultimately, with anything to do with data and end subscribers, privacy always comes in. You do have a more privacy compliant way of ensuring that there's a purpose and a meaning to why you're collecting the data, which, you know, like when you go to a website now with cookies, they say you have functional cookies to help improve the service. And in some ways, a lot of what we now do with data is to help customers like Mehdi and Faye improve their service or their offering to their subscribers.
Yeah, don't set me off about cookies on websites. The number of sites I visit, well, I visit them regularly, and they ask me every time. It's like, I haven't changed my mind. I'm still very willing to accept the cookies. Please don't ask me. Please don't ask me again about that. I'm wondering what clearly has happened over time is that first there was the ability to collect the data, and then gradually, as you were explaining there, operators have realized what the data is, which helps them basically. So I'm wondering if there is other data which Cinemedia and others can help collect, which the operators haven't yet tapped into, as some new direction they might be able to go in.
So there's both a bit of the past and the future as an answer in that answer, because I think a lot of the data orchestration that we are doing now, that platform providers are doing, are all focused on the next generation devices. And people have completely ignored the huge legacy portfolio of devices that are still getting used by subscribers, that still have a data footprint. They just haven't found the right means to extract data. So one thing—
Is it easy to go back and do that? Because I can imagine, you know, some boxes in the field being, I don't know, maybe up to 10 years old, perhaps, in some for some operators, and you know, it's hard enough sometimes to change channels on these devices. So without, you know, collecting meaningful data as well.
So I think what we've started doing within our own solution is finding effective ways to reduce the data footprint, so we get the right quality data with a small data footprint, and we can do a lot of the processing outside the box in our own platforms to try and understand what that really means. You know, a channel identifier could just be an LCN. We don't need to know the channel name and program event because we know what that data is already outside of the box. So we have learned to reduce the data footprint to make it effective even for those really old boxes, because there is a value in there. And in some ways, the customers you're acquiring with new platforms can be quite different from the customers you have in there. So when you're doing your audience segmentation, we want to try and encourage our platform providers to not ignore the older segments that are still there, who are still more likely to be more loyal and likely to stay for longer as well, because they've always been a Sky subscriber, for example, and that's the platform they're on. The next generation is more about, today it's Sky, tomorrow it's Now TV, then it's Disney Plus. They tend to be more fickle as well. So that's the past. And I think in terms of the future, it is, as Faye said, bringing a little bit of that subjective perspective into the data as well. You know, how can you link NPS surveys back to how those subscribers are really behaving on their TV? You know, someone saying, I hardly use my Skybox, I don't recommend it at all, to finding out from the data that actually they're on their Skybox 7 days a week. It almost allows you to qualify subjective data with what you have objectively. And I think that, just like your example of watching Sky and Apple TV and all of the data sitting in silos, you need a robust platform that can go across all of those silos, you know, break down the silos and try to aggregate that information to give customers like Faye and Mehdi a more holistic view of their subscribers across different platforms and solutions.
And that's interesting. So from what I understand from what you were saying there, you can use if you like, the numbers data, the information perhaps drawn from the set-top box, and put that alongside a customer survey in order to expand, if you like, give some color to the data, for one description.
Absolutely, yes.
What about data that is maybe historical data? I don't mean going back years. I probably mean just going back weeks or months. Is it a sensible plan for operators to say, right, well, this is what my customer is doing today, but a year ago they were doing this? Is it? It depends on the circumstances, but presumably sometimes it is useful to use that historical data to bring in some new insights.
Absolutely. And I think that TV specifically, even with all of the advances and new types of services available, TV is still a very seasonal behavior. People tend to watch less TV in the summer because they'd rather be out. They tend to watch more TV when there are holidays or family closer together, like in December. And even TV programming to this date follows the same annual schedule of programming. So there is definitely value in understanding year on year what is the kind of content that families tend to watch once the school year begins in September in the UK, for example. There is a familiarity and a value in knowing that behavior. And to some extent, when things change, they never change instantly. There's a gradual degree of change, and you're able to see that only by looking at historical data. But you don't really need to know that somebody had an error with their network last year. That's not really going to help you this year. But I think with content consumption, there is a lot of value that historical data can give platform and content aggregators.
I can imagine a little asterisk. Go ahead, Faye, sorry.
I wanted to say that I totally agree with Amruta, and it's basically what we call, seasonality in audience measurement in general. So we are always based on seasonal trends that, as Amruta says, they do not change due to, let's say, for example, a higher temperature once a year or something. There are some patterns that they do follow some rules. And, pay TV operators and, TV operators in general, they always look into those trends, and their program strategy is always based on those, seasonal trends, seasonal patterns. So yeah, to me also historic data is a must.
I did quickly want to ask you one thing, Amrita, before we move on a little. And it's often the assumption that an IPTV delivered service, you can get more data because of that direct connection with the customer. The assumption that IPTV, you can get more data than, say, you can on cable or satellite or terrestrial. Is that exactly true, or are there other ways and means of getting that same qualitative data on different types of platforms?
I think there is fundamentally a need to operate an IPTV or to use an IPTV platform that you need to be connected. So it certainly increases the likelihood of having a census data set with IPTV. With satellite and cable and the traditional terrestrial models, even if you didn't have network connectivity, you could still watch the telly. And that means that we do have gaps in data, which of course, I think a lot of customers are now trying to encourage their subscribers, if you kept it connected, you'd get this additional benefit. They're trying to make it a value proposition for the subscriber to be connected so that they can harvest the data and of course derive more value from it. But absolutely, I think it will always be the case that IPTV has better data than traditional devices. Okay, thanks very much. Mehdi, on the subject of better data, or specifically data sources, what are the key sources of data? Is it coming from, say, the channels themselves, or is it data that you collect? What works best?
Well, so we do both, actually. So we collected the original data from content providers and from the channels. And on top of that, we do some enrichment. So we have a partnership with Gracenode, for example, for metadata enrichment. And we try to integrate other metadata from other, let's say, from Netflix as well, and so on. So just to have more.
Do they actually let you have the data, though? I think I know a lot of people were concerned. I remember the BBC once getting grumpy because Netflix wouldn't give them data on their own shows.
Well, the metadata, we got it, so we have it. And yeah, maybe which is the part which is a bit more challenging is the customers' insights or the customers' behavior on their platform. That's more tricky.
Yeah, I guess the metadata important to get the information on their shows, so you can, integrate that with your platform. If you're doing, I don't know if you do some sort of global search, but that's very important functionality.
Yeah, exactly. So we do that as well. Nevertheless, there are some providers like RTL, for example, who put strict restrictions and they don't want their metadata to be touched. So we show it, we display it as we receive it from them. So yeah, it depends on the circumstances.
So the German market, I seem to recall, has historically been a little bit awkward, shall we say, on getting information and out of channels and into the operators' networks.
Oh, yeah, let's say it's a bit specific. Yeah, I mean, even in terms of requirements and so on, yeah, we have some, sometimes some requirements, yeah, make people wondering, yeah, I mean, or we have the feeling that, yeah, it's always, I mean, all the other European countries, and then there's Germany, but yeah, at the end, it's a big market. We need to cope with it. We need to align to everybody's requirements. And as I said, I mean, so we are an aggregator, so we really we're open, and we would like to have everybody integrated in our platform in order to offer as much content as possible to our subscribers.
Faye, are there other sources which you use at OTE to make sure the information's there for you?
Well, obviously, we do have our platform data. We are also working with Nielsen, so we do have audience measurement data from them. And, we are constantly building new tools internally in-house so as to, go further and upgrade our viewership measurement. So it's a kind of, a teamwork, third parties and in-house as well.
Yeah, Amrita, it was touched on a minute or two ago by Mehdi, but in terms of making sure that the relevant and correct metadata is used, do we know what strategies have you either seen operators use to make sure that is the case, or perhaps some that you've advised them to put in?
So one of the things that we started looking at is trying to understand what are the key metadata fields that are necessary for a subscriber to complete their purchase decision. Do you need to have more of a plot line? Do you need to have director? Do you need to have IMDb rating or something like that? So we started doing that analysis to almost recommend to our customers what is the minimum date metadata you need to have in order to increase your conversion rate for purchasing content. So we have started doing that within the metadata space. We're starting to do that. We need to build up more traction in that. But yes, that is definitely one angle to follow on from Eddie in terms of how we are advising our customers.
Right. So are you able to help the operators put that metadata into their platforms?
At the moment, because we only process and analyze the data to surface the insights, the getting of the metadata is still with companies like Gracenote or others that our customers still need to go to in order to get that metadata completion. All we can do is surface the opportunities that they have, that they can accomplish with metadata, but we can't actually fill that in for them. And as Mehdi said, content providers are very specific and particular about how their content is described. So we wouldn't even want to step into that minefield.
Yeah, it's quite challenging, isn't it? When you have, I don't know, one channel has series 1 to 4 of a show, another channel has series 5 to 8, and the description, wouldn't think it was the same show sometimes. So that sort of, that consistency. Generally, Amrita, do you think that analytics are given, the priority that they should be within companies? Clearly, OTE and Vodafone are both putting it high up the agenda, but is that the same for all operators in your experience?
So what I'm seeing is that there is, just like there's a data silo in terms of collecting the data itself, there also seems to be an analytics silo within organizations. And there you will find that there are some organizations that I'm seeing where the marketing team has a very advanced analytics capability, whereas the customer acquisition team or the content acquisition team, not so much. They're still working in that old model of whatever they think is popular, the highest paid opinion, that's the one that goes and defines their content strategy. So we're seeing that there is that level of, there is that uneven balance of analytics within organizations. It's not consistent. And what's also happening is every one of these teams are starting to access the raw data and interpret things themselves. So a marketing team could decide that if you spend 30 seconds watching a movie, I'm going to count you as an audience and make sure I've reached my quota. Whereas for a content acquisition team, they might say, hang on, if you haven't watched the movie for 70% of it, I'm not going to call that engagement. And then what happens is at the exec level, you suddenly start seeing very different numbers of audience figures for the same event because people are just counting it differently. And this single source of truth mentality is something that we are trying to work with our customers to say, make sure that internal or external, all your teams have a common understanding of audience counting. And so any analysis they do, when it comes back to you, you still get a structured view even across all of your silos. So that's the conversation or journey we're trying to have with our customers now.
That's an interesting, that then almost goes, it goes well beyond the data really, and into customer or operators practices in terms of what they're actually doing. I guess there are some people who generally can say, well, that show is going to work, and it does. There's always examples of these things which haven't and haven't happened yet. At the same time, the data must point people in the right direction. And if I don't know, one person within a company is saying that, well, 50% of a show is enough, and another one is saying 70%, that's not particularly good practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is something we're trying to help our customers solve and take them on that journey to the value of a single source of truth data set.
Yeah. Mehdi, overall, would you say that analytics, has a good enough priority within yourself and your colleagues?
Well, so if I take the example of cable operators, usually, I mean, if I take the example of Vodafone Germany, so we are dealing with 4 or 5 different TV platforms, right? And operating those platforms, it's a big challenge. So yeah, the problem with analytics is that usually it's being perceived as something that requires like big investment from financial perspective, but also from resource perspective. So we need to have a big storage volume in order to store like big number of big volume of data and so on. We need to work in understanding this data, in making some predictions and so on. And the result, it's not something tangible. It's not something that you can guarantee from the very beginning. So the tendency is sometimes that, this is something that needs to be postponed. We have other priorities we need to operate or to maintain the platforms that we have. Like we've got something like, so 9 million customers. So it's considerable. So that's the challenge. But coming back maybe to what Amruta was mentioning previously, what I would really like to see, or I would even love to see is, understanding. So Amruta mentioned previously that the TV is something, maybe seasonal and so on, which probably means also that the metadata or the relevant metadata fields, they may change from one season to another or from special occasion to another and so on. And I'm pretty sure no human beings have such a granular understanding to say which metadata is relevant for this specific moment, or maybe why this content is popular and the other one is not. So the idea here would be really to automate, in my opinion, to automate everything, to build some kind of an intelligence where we give all the raw data as they are and teach the engine over time. So this is a learning phase. It's not going to happen like in a week or a month, but the idea would be really to teach the engine and let the engine automatically identify which metadata attribute is more relevant. It's probably a combination of metadata fields, right? It's not only 1 or 2, but it's build a complete context in an automated way and make it dynamic in a way that identifies maybe the different categories of the different periods of the year that are relevant for each person or for each group of subscribers.
That's interesting, isn't it, Amruta? Because I guess, last year was clearly going to have a little asterisk attached to it, and audiences may take a different view, I don't know, on Norwegian National Day, if you're Norwegian, or if a member of the royal family has just died. Your viewing patterns are going to be different, and that's going to affect things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in fact, I would say that in the UK, the Prime Minister's announcement of lockdown on the 23rd of March was probably the most viewed event across all of 2020, which I think
something like the 5th most watched show of all time as well. That's ridiculous.
Probably, yeah, exactly. And it's using data to understand that these special events occur and disrupt trends, but ultimately they are still trends, and there is value in learning about potential disruptions and almost being able to use it to predict and change your actions based on these hopefully once in a lifetime events occurring.
Yes, we don't want any more once-in-a-lifetime events, that's for sure, on recent form. I've been told it's time to wrap up, so we'll do that right now. So thank you, Amruta. Also, thanks to Faye and to Mehdi.
Sorry for
well.
the power off thing going on.
I know you'll have to pedal faster next time to keep the lights on for us.
I mean, we've paid the electricity bill, that's for sure. It's like a matter of, I don't know. Sorry for that.
It happens. I think it's all fine.
Yeah, everything went well.
No, thanks for your contribution. And with that, Priscilla, I'll take it back to you.